All right, fifth graders, today we're going to do a lesson on greatest common factor. First of all, what is a factor? Okay, you've used factors before, but a factor is just a number that we multiply together to get another number. So any number that you can multiply together to get a product, those numbers that you multiply together are called factors. So when we multiply two numbers together, those are the factors that we have. So think about when we multiply the number 8, what numbers do we use to multiply to get 8? Well, first of all, the easy one would be 1 times 8. And the next one would be 2 times 4. Those are the only numbers that we have that multiply to give us 8. So those are the factors of 8. So our factors of 8, if we made a list and we want to put this in numerical order, we want to put these in order from least to greatest. So we go 1 and 2, 4, and 8. Those are the factors of 8, or 1, 2, 4, and 8. If we look at the next one, now we're going to do 12. So we're going to list out all the numbers that multiply together to give us 12. So we'll start with 1. It's usually easiest to just start with 1 and figure out what it multiplies to get, and then just go right down the list. So I'm going to go with 1. 1 times 12 works. Then I'm going to try 2. 2 times 6 works. Then we look at 3. 3 we can multiply by 4. Since 4 is already in our list, we know that we're done because 5 doesn't work, 6 is already in our list, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 don't work either. So that is our list. So all you have to do is go down this list here until you find a number that's already in your list, and then you know you're done. So now we're going to put these in order from least to greatest, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. So those are our factors for 12. So again, you're just thinking of numbers that multiply together to give you that number. Now, once we have those two lists, we're looking for the greatest common factor. So the GCF is the largest factor that two or more numbers have in common. So if we go back to our list for 8 and 12, 8 has 1, 2, 4, and 8. And 12 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. So the factors that they have in common are 1, 2, and 4. But this time, we're looking for the greatest factor that they have in common. So we're looking for the biggest number that is in both lists. That would be 4. So the greatest common factor, or the GCF, of 8 and 12 would be 4. We're going to go ahead and just look at this next worksheet here. We're going to work through some of these examples. Go ahead and zoom this in so you can see it. All right. They've already listed the factors for you for these first couple. So let's go ahead and look through. And also, when you get to your homework, there's a couple of these factors on your homework that you can look back to this list if you forget any of the factors. So for 10, it would be 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. Okay, 3 doesn't work, 4 doesn't work, and 5 is already in your list, so that's why your list is done there. For 25, there's only 3 factors. It's 1 times 25 and 5 times 5. If it's a double like that, you only have to list it once. So 5 times 5. There are not any other numbers that multiply to give us 25. So once we get to that double, we know we're done. So when we look at these, the numbers that they have in common would be 1 and 5. 1 and 5 are the numbers they have in common, but the greatest number that they have in common is 5. So that's going to be our GCF. Number 2 here, 18 and 21. The factors of 18 are 1 and 18, 2 times 9, and 3 times 6. 4 doesn't work, 5 doesn't work, and 6 is already in our list, so we know that's done. For 21, it's 1 times 21, 2 does not work, 3 times 7, 4, 5, and 6 don't work, and 7's in our list, so we're done. Factors that they have in common are 1 and 3. There's not any other number in that list that they have in common. So the greatest one, the biggest one that they have in common would be 3. So let's look at the next example here. 28 and 35. For 28, it's 1 times 28, 2 times 14, and 4 times 7. For 35, it's 1 times 35 and 5 times 7. So going through factors they have in common, they will always have 1 in common because every number can be found by multiplying 1 times itself. So 1's always a factor in here. Hopefully it's not going to be your greatest common factor. We'll talk about that later in the chapter when the greatest common factor of 2 numbers is 1, what we do with that. But for today, we're just looking for the greatest one. And this is 7. So 7 is our GCF. Last example where they give us these factors here. 21 is 1 times 21 and 3 times 7. For 49, it's 1 times 49 and 7 times 7. So 7 and 1 are our common factors. 7 is our greatest common factor. As we skip down here to number 6, we're looking at 6 and 24. I'm going to pull the shade down here so we can just focus on the problem that we have. 6 and 24. Now we're going to make a list of our factors of 6. We're going 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. 4 doesn't work, 5 doesn't work, so our list is done for 6. For 24, we have 1 times 24. And I'm going to make this list and spread those numbers out so I can work towards the middle here. If you would rather work on a separate sheet of paper and then come back and list the factors, that's fine as well. We're going to go 2 times 12. We know that 3 times 8 will also give us 24. Now we try 4. 4 works. 4 times 6. And 5 does not work. Just 5 times 5 is 25, not 24. And 6 is already in our list, so we're done. So just go right down the list. Start with 1 times what? 2, 3, 4, all the way until you find a number that's already in your list, and then you know you're done. If we circle the factors that they have in common, they have 1 in common. They also have 2, 3, and 6. So all of the factors of 6 are also factors of 24. The greatest common factor would be 6. 6 is the biggest number that they have in common. For 9 and 27, it's kind of similar to what we just did here. We're going to start with 1. We're going to go 1 times 9. Then we check 2. 2 times nothing is going to give us 9, because 2 is an even number and 9 is odd, so that's not going to work. Then we try 3. It's 3 times 3. So that's it. That's the only factors of 9 is 1, 9, and 3. For 27, it's going to be 1 times 27. 2 does not work, but 3 times 9 works. 4 does not work. Nothing for 5, nothing for 6. 7 doesn't work. 8 does not work. And 9 is already in our list, so we are done. If we circle our common factors, 1, 3, and 9, and the greatest one that they would have in common is 9. Now we have 4 and 14. 4 should be pretty easy because it's a small number. 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. So all we're doing is using our multiplication facts, and that's why we really emphasize making sure you know your multiplication facts for chapter 6. So make sure that you're studying that. If you are struggling, you could use a multiplication chart for those single digit ones, or you could use a large multiplication chart to find, for this case, all the times that you see 14 on there. We know that it's going to be 1 times 14 and 2. If you're unsure, you can always divide that number by the factor that you're looking for. So for 2, we know it's 2 times 7. And if you're unsure if 3 works, go down your multiples of 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So 14 is not in that list, so we know 3 does not work. You could also divide that number and see if it goes into it evenly without a remainder. In this case, it does not, so 3 is not going to work. 4 also doesn't work. Neither does 5 or 6, so we are done. 7 is already in our list. So the only factors that they have in common are 1 and 2, and the greatest common factor is 2. Now if we go to this next page here, now we're going to get a little bit larger, some larger numbers. These numbers do appear on your homework, so you may want to refer back to this video when we're talking about the factors of 24 and 30. Let's change that here to 30. All right, factors of 24 are 1 times 24. Then we have 2 times 12. And again, I want this in order from least to greatest. You want to spread this out and keep the number in order so that you can easily find your factors that they have in common. Then we go to 3. It's 3 times 8 gives me 24. And 4 times 6. 5 does not work, and we said already 6 is in our list, so we know that we're done with that number. Now we go to 30. 1 times 30. 2. Well, 30 is an even number. So if you're dealing with an even number, 2 is always going to work. So if you need to, just count by 2's up there. But it is 2 times 15. Then we have 3 times 10. 4 does not work. 5 does work. It's 5 times 6. And since 6 is already in our list, and 7, 8, 9 do not work, 10's in the list, we are done. Now we circle the factors that we have in common. We have 1 in common, 2 in common, 3 in common, and 6 in common. The numbers that they have in common are 1, 2, 3, and 6. In the GCF, the greatest common factor is 6. Now let's look at 48 and 60. Again, 2 numbers that will appear on your homework. For 48, there are a lot of factors, both for 48 and 60, so we're going to slowly go through this one here. 1 times 48. 2 works because it's even, so 48 is even. So 2 is going to work, and it's 2 times 24. Three also works. If you count by threes, you will eventually get to 48. It's 3 times 16. 3 times 16 is 48. 4 works because it's 4 times 12. 5 does not work, but 6 does work. Because remember, 6 times 8 is 48. 7 does not work. 8 is already in our list, so we are done. Those are all the factors of 48. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, 16, 24, and 48. For the factors of 60, we have 1 times 60. We have 2 times 30. We also know if we flip-flop those, we'd have 3 times 20. Now the one that a lot of students miss would be 4. 4 does work. If you're unsure, you can do 60 divided by 4, and 4 goes into this once. 4 goes into 20 5 times. So we know that it's 4 times 15. 5 also works, and if you counted by 5s, or you could divide it, you get 5 times 12. Obviously, 6 is going to work because it's 6 times 10. 7 does not work because 7 times 9 is 63. 8 doesn't work because 8 times 8 is 64. 9 does not work. Again, we said it was 7 times 9 was 63. And 10 is back already in our list. So once we get back to that number that's already in our list, we know we're done. Now we're going to circle the numbers that they have in common. They have 1 in common. They have 2 in common. They have 3, 4, 6, and 12. So they have a lot of factors in common. But the greatest common factor, the GCF that we're looking for, is 12. That concludes our lesson today, guys. Great job. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Your homework will be this worksheet here, but it's also found on Schoology, so you can just use a separate sheet of paper to list those factors out. Or if you have a copy of this worksheet, you can do the factors on the sheet and then fill it in on Schoology. Great job today, guys. Have a great day.